which is like it starts off with this like where we kind of like respect each other and like to have these like intellectual discussions and stuff, and he gets to a point where he's not like he doesn't treat me like I'm dumb, and it has that level of it. But then we reach some point where I start to like challenge him a little bit more deeply on some of his like core held like ethics, I guess. It's like his mode of behavior, and saying,
you cannot
I know, and
change
start
the
to be
vibe.
like, I'll start to be like, have you thought about like, is this behavior consistent? But I try and like bring it about in like a roundabout way. I can't help myself sometimes,
Right. No, I know.
and then when that happens though, inevitably, like they way overreact. It's like they're fighting every fight they've ever had in their life. It's like, are you disrespecting me? Like I need to, feel like respected for my ideas and like my own. They like. They're like North Korea with their like territory, It's like, like they need to be seen. They desperately need to be seen as legitimate in that scenario, and it's like they interpret like your criticism as like an attack on. I mean, this is my interpretation, right? I'm not them, but like they like seem to interpret it as like an attack on their entire mode of being, when really it's just like, have you considered this?
I mean, I think maybe they struggle with articulation of their NI understanding of something.
Oh, definitely.
And TI kind of breaks things down in a way that's easily swallowed, sort of. So
yeah, that's true. I guess.
So it's like I give them the benefit of the doubt when that happens, but
yeah. I mean, because I know I recognize like my own role that like I play in like the evolution of the conflict, and it's kind of like it's always when I'm like on autopilot that it happens, and same with him, like, and I can sense when it happens and we're both on autopilot, but it happens anyway because you can't like avoid it sometimes. It feels like, but
I really think that how mature they are with FI is like how far along their FI journey they are. I can't tell if distance from their FI is better or worse.
Right, I can see if they have like an underdeveloped FI that like their value judgments on like what you're like, they could really interpret what you're saying as like a really much harsher judgment, I guess.
Socially paranoid, like
yeah, definitely.
Like, I would bring my one INTJ friend around. Like I tried to get her to like meet other people and stuff, and she'd be like, "Oh, your friends."
Yeah, they are.
I'm like, literally, all they said was like, "Hey, I like your shirt." Like, where did you gather that they hate you?
Right.
Just refuse to interact with new people.
Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh man, all these people I know like got together and had a party, and I wasn't invited. Like they're conspiring against me." Like that kind of stuff like happens to this person as well.
Definitely.
Like they start to feel like it's but then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if they announce that they feel that way, like they'll actively go and tell those people that that's the way they feel, and then they're like, okay, and then like next time they're like, we're not going to invite that guy, right? Like and then it's like a feedback loop, and then they actually do start to conspire against them.
No, actually, the INTJ I know in real life, he like hang out with us, for game night and whatever, and but like for some reason we couldn't get him to come into like Discord with us and our online friends. He was so weird about it. He didn't want to have to talk to people like over voice chat. And most of the time he just holds up in his mom's house or wherever the fuck he lives, and he just upgrades his computer like all the time. That's where all of his spare money goes to, even though he doesn't even use all of this computer power at all. It's just a hobby of his, and he just
yeah. I mean, I don't want to give the wrong impression that I like dislike INTJs. It's just that like I seem like, because I want to like them so badly, like I
know what you mean.
I invest like a lot of energy into them oftentimes.
I respect them.
Here's this person that is like able to do this stuff, and that's something I can't do. So if only we could work together, imagine what we could accomplish. But oftentimes, like their idea of, like, you can't ever get an INTJ to just like be subservient to your idea. Like they can't just be an agent of enacting your idea. It's like impossible to work out that relationship. They have to be the one in charge of the project, right? So unless I was like some kind of master manipulator that could convince them and trick them into thinking that they were in charge when really I was, and that's not like a healthy relationship, you know.
Right.
That's going to backfire.
I mean, I look at it as them having probably more in terms of raw intellect than I do, but there's
like
no
processing power, kind of.
Right, but there's no like flexibility to it.
It's very rigid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a conventional computer versus a quantum computer. It's
Kinda, yeah.
It's like you have more degrees of freedom or not.
I had an INTJ friend who was like so INTJ. Oh my gosh. When I was in college, and I met her going in, and she like glommed onto me. Like, first second I got there, it was like, oh, we're friends. Like, you and I are like, we understand each other. There's like a good like mental connection, but there was also the sense that like the INTJ is like smarter, but like we are engaging in interesting conversations, but the INTJ is smarter. Anyways, but she like became really close friends with me, or I guess really close is a kind of limited word when it comes to INFPs, because it's like, I don't know. It's I don't know. Anyways, but it seemed like she was really close to me very quickly, and then she found a new friend like a few months later and became very close to her.
Very reactionary, yeah.
Friends, and the new friend was very SP, like ESP kind of thing, and then it was like they were best friends, and it was very confusing.
So something I've realized is that the INTJ loves the archetype of like the pixie dream girl kind of like thing, and they're like obsessed with it, right? It's like an obsession. Like they immediately will like attach on to this person that's like very, very different to them. You know, this like very, very like extroverted kind of person that has like does kind of like spontaneous, quirky things, I guess, you know, like that kind of thing. Like they just can't help themselves. They're like, it's like a magnet. They just like, and they just like smother that person, and then they over smother them, and then they realize it, and then they like freak out, and then they find a new one. Like, and the cycle repeats. Like I've seen that happen with a few INTJs. And they overanalyze it in their head, and they start to worry about it, and then they reach this point where they're like, man, they haven't been reciprocating all this like love and attention that I've been giving them like as much as I expected them to. Like I better cut my losses, and like once they've made that like decision, it's like all or nothing. It's like over, you know. And
I really had no idea like what happened. It was very confusing to me.
There's this whole big narrative that happened in their head that they never told you anything about. Yeah, that's what's going on there, I think. There's this whole big thing that happened, but it was an entirely a kind of like a paranoid construction in their own mind about like what the actual nature of your guys' like relationship was, and then like they didn't communicate it with you at all, you know. And then once they made a decision internally, they just acted on that decision, and they didn't feel the need to like notify you or anything, right? Why would they if they no longer consider you like part of their organism, you know? It's like, why would I do this? I don't know. That's kind of my interpretation as someone who's not an INTJ. Yeah.
Right. You're the first person this is the first group I've talked about it with. Curious to do more research. Research, quote unquote.
Well, yeah, Carolyn's like the only regular INTJ we have in here, and apparently none of this applies to her. So
Yeah.
it's like,
wait, I thought Saren said she was in the text combo. She's not really good. I don't know.
Well, I don't know how much of this is like the interaction between like the male identity of like things and like that whole like alpha male like caricature and all that kind of stuff, like how that plays into the personality dynamic.
right.
You know, especially if they're like worried about like impressing other people, like gender roles can make a big difference, I think. Like your perceived gender role. I guess. I don't know.
My friendship was a girl.
Oh, okay. So
Girl
maybe
and girl.
I don't know. Just putting it out there, there might be differences in that respect.
Well, I mean, it seems like Carolyn recognized that tendency in herself and like tried to suppress it.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps there was an element of keeping, wanting to keep people at arm's reach, and so not wanting to go closer in or go further in a friendship, and so just skipping from one to another.
There's definitely a thing too where if like an INTJ like too quickly engages into a relationship, like they'll realize it and then they'll suddenly feel vulnerable and they might withdraw too. That's like another thing. Like they realize that they overextended and that they're exposed. You know, so like a defensive retreat is another potentiality, I guess. But that can factor into their internal calculus, right? So like
Internal calculus, that's nice.
Like how they're thinking about the entire nature, you know, they start thinking about like how they feel vulnerable and stuff, and they start to think, well, is this really worth it? Like, are they really reciprocating enough? Like, I don't know if this person like feels, you know, and they kind of like tie in together a little bit, I think. But.
There you go. They're the
Are you guys familiar with attachment styles?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a psychology major in school.
What's the general idea of?
So there's like 4 of them. There's only one that's healthy, really, which is secure, and then there's dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant. Fuck. Let me look them up because I feel like I'm botching it. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that I think that the INTJs, like kind of, I said it in the chat already, but I think they're like prone to being dismissive avoidant as far as attachment style goes.
Yeah.
The idea is
Okay, I see what you're saying.
When you were young, to be and were given like good feedback in the first few years of your life by your primary caregiver. Like positive feedback and consistent care, then you would have a stable, or whatever the positive one is, a stable attachment. But then if you were not given positive feedback and consistent care,
Yeah, I
then you
just
would
heard that in
develop
the
a
TED Talk.
attachment style.
Is that what you're talking about or not?
Well, I learned about it in my degree.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I'll
So-
post a video if you guys want to watch that. But it was kind of an interesting subject as well. It was more like monkeys, dealing with monkeys, how a development of the youth can affect their progress throughout life. Having a positive mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. This INTJ I know is like, he has this like really like complicated relationship with his mom. He's like I don't know. He feels like this deep, fierce loyalty. I don't know what that's about. Like incredible. Like I've never seen anyone feel like that intense about it. And if you like anything that could be perceived as like a questioning of that is like met with like the most harsh resistance. I don't know what that's about. But, yeah.
Do they have SI?
I don't remember. Let's see.
Do you know what your attachment
No.
style is, Phoebe? I don't think you can.
Who did you ask?
Phoebe?
My attachment style?
Mhm.
Not secure.
Well, I don't usually expect people to be secure, and if they think they're secure, I don't believe them anyway. So,
Yeah, I didn't have a very loving family.
Hmm.
Or maybe maybe loving but not consistent.
Oh, I don't remember what my attachment style is.
But like the way I picture attachment styles is this like classic, not experiment, but like field test kind of thing, where it was less of a test and more of like a proof, where they had all of these Russian orphans that were orphaned in some sort of war. I don't know. I can't remember exactly why they were orphaned, but they had all of these orphans in Eastern Europe, and they had so many of them that they couldn't give them adequate care in the facilities. They didn't have enough nurses to to hold them consistently and nurse them by hand and all of these things all the time. So they were they were raised largely like in a very like sterile, non-human environment.
Yeah,
more like on a routine of like, okay, this is your feeding schedule. This is like when you're gonna get schooling. This is when blah blah blah. But it didn't have a lot of nurturing, especially in the first few years. And so these babies grew up with a lot of issues, like a lot of health problems. And like they had a really high mortality rate, especially because they weren't held in their first few years of their life. And so that's kind of the proof of, like the golden proof of attachment styles and why they're important.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I watched a similar documentary regarding Russians as well, like that. Or I'm not sure if it was a certain area, the Czech, the republics and stuff, that the Cold Current, where something like that happened during the war as well, where there's not enough mothers figures, so they all got sent to like a house or a hostel, or like the kids were abandoned. And when they grew up, it affected their progress during life and like connecting it a whole bunch of different ways. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just totally fucked up, and I mean mentally, because of scenarios like that.
Isn't there a disorder called like reactive attachment disorder or something that correlates to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't
the
be
bad
surprised.
kids or whatever.
Which is like different than like attachment styles, because this is like something that's kind of more morbid.
Well, let's get on to a different subject, or you guys want to keep going down the how people are screwed up?
Isn't that what Myers-Briggs is about?
Yeah, basically. Everybody.
Well, here I am looking at the child and adult attachment styles now, and I'm trying to figure out like what's me, you know.
Okay, yeah, that's what happens every time.
It's starting to bring up some stuff I didn't know if I wanted to think about.
Like there's
That's
some
why I
guy
brought up the
on
Russian.
MBTV, and he was talking, and I was like, yeah, dude, that guy sounds totally like he had a narcissist mother growing up. And sure enough, yeah, that was basically it. I mean, people get fucked up by their parents or their spouses.
Yeah,
or
like I had parents that
but
were
then
like, really busy. I don't know.
They get in these shitty relationships, and like you can totally foresee it's not going to work out. Like anytime my cousins or friends or family get hooks up, I go, okay, I do assessment on them to see how long they're going to be viable or last, and if they're even compatible. And the majority of the time, yeah, okay, I see whatever. And then like, of course, if I see like problems or issues, I fucking bring that up before they even think about getting married or whatever. I just tell them like the whole fucking playbook. I go, look, this is going to be your life in like 10 years. I know it's fucked up, but hey.
To pose it, because people are like, well, you don't know shit, you know. It's better to be like, do you think that this might get in the way or this might happen? There's probably a better way.
No. I'm just giving you a heads up. Like if you want to pursue down that route, it's all into you. But you're kind of just, it's automatically like lit up in my fucking trajectory of what's going to happen. And sometimes, yeah, it does happen exactly like that. Sometimes it doesn't. Like I've misjudged some people, but I don't try to judge people off the bat, like in like the first month or 2 or 3. That's why I tried to telling everybody that I need to get like a 4 or 6 month assessment on the person before I get to actually know him or judge him. But like if the guy's total dick or super shallow and fucking superficial kind of person, I don't even want to talk to them. I just like push them away kind of deal, or use like a 10-15 foot pole and keep them away from me.
Yeah, I guess I was just saying as far as like receptiveness to whatever vision you have for the relationship or what you think is going to happen, they probably would receive it better if you just weren't like, this is.
Have you ever seen the How I Met Your Mother?
Like in episode.
Yeah, there's this episode where you don't see the faults in the other person until someone tells you and like cracks the screen for you, and then like, fuck, he does do that, or she does do that. And that's basically what it brought up to me. Like sometimes some people don't like overlook it because of love or whatever that shitty thing, hormones crap thing people will go off of.
Yeah.
Because it's just like it's a state of their mind. They're like on a drug.
Yeah.
And they tend to forgive others.
Oxytocin mainly, right? I mean.
Yeah, well, like there's an actual. Give me another video. Damn it, fuck, dude. Even with videos, I have like a shitload of videos for every subject you're talking about.
What was your conclusion? INTP's attachment style.
Oh, it looks like
there's a test somewhere. Actually.
So as the adult, I think preoccupied personality. So I kind of had like a little bit of inconsistency, right? Because my parents like, you know, both worked at like a summer camp, and we like lived there. But it was like a nonprofit, and they were like so responsible for everything that even though like I was like around or whatever, it was like they were only available during like certain times of like the year, and it was like kind of inconsistent, and I was like very, very independent as like a consequence, I guess. Like I spent a lot of my time like kind of just like making my own entertainment and stuff like that.
Was that a negative thing to you as a child, or were you just like,
I mean, I didn't feel that way like, you know, as I was older, but I was under the impression that these early attachment patterns is stuff that you might not be conscious of, you know.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I did feel like it was pretty inconsistent. Like, because sometimes, like, now in retrospect, like, my analysis is that, you know, they would feel a little bit guilty about, like, not having a lot of time for me because they had these other responsibilities. And then they would, like, overparent, you know? Like, in terms of both punishment and, like, reward, if that makes sense. Like, you know, if I was doing something they didn't like, they would, like, overcompensate for their, like, their perceived lack of parenting or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was like, that's why I think like the inconsistent kind of thing makes sense.
Like they would give you all of the punishment at once and all of the sort of positive at once because it came in bursts because they were so busy. Right.
So that would mean as like an adult, it's like more like preoccupied personality, most likely. That's the one that seems most likely, you know. Mm-hmm. I have some sense of like fearful avoidant just sometimes, but that was just because like, you know, it wasn't like I was like beaten or anything like that, but you definitely did like the spankings and stuff like that, you know, but I don't feel like strongly that way. But with certain things, like if I don't know, there's still stuff in my adulthood that like if I'm sneaking around like I did when I was a kid, when I had to sneak around with something, it kind of like brings up like old feelings and stuff just because I knew if I got caught, it would result in like, you know, belt to the butt, you know, or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's not like real strong, you know, I don't really identify very strongly with the fearful avoidant like description, you know, but I can see that like if I'm super, super stressed, it resembles that more. But I think the preoccupied personality like best resembles like, you know, I'm very like self-critical and like self-analysis stuff, you know, is like a big part of the things that like consume my internal thoughts that are like more negative, I would guess. Mm-hmm. But you know, because I have this thing of like I don't consciously seek approval. Like there's no like cognitive like action of me like going to seek approval, but I find myself like craving it in like weird scenarios. that I
Or-
didn't expect. I was like, why would I even care like what this person thinks? And
Or like
it
if
makes
you
no
get
sense.
it, you're kind of surprised that like
Yeah, and I was like, why are you praising me? Like, this isn't really that impressive, It's,
yeah. Or sometimes you go so long without like basic human affection, whether it be verbal or whatever, that you're like,
yeah, and you're like,
oh, I actually kind of needed this. Like this was something that I didn't realize that I kind of wanted.
yeah, but in your shock, I'm just like deadpan, like I'm just like, oh,
Yeah, I can't react in the moment either.
and they're like, I'm just like,
Or I
oh,
always think that like
thanks.
they
Like, I
think
guess.
that I was like searching for a compliment or something, so then I sort of turn it into a negative thing almost every single time.
right. I almost
What did I say
immediately
to
my
imply
gut
that I
my
wanted
gut
it?
reaction is to like have a self-deprecating comment to like offset that.
Yeah, things need to be balanced. I can't be too
Yeah,
great or too
yeah.
bad.
Yeah. We have to be neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Tiny hands.
And I do have this tendency, like when I do get really close with somebody, I do kind of like I get a little bit too close sometimes when because when I finally make a connection with somebody that feels like real meaningful and I can be vulnerable, like I do kind of go a little bit too fast. I think usually,
Like with spilling all of your like personal shit or something.
like a little bit too much. Because like once you establish, like I feel like the trust is established, and like if I was with another INTP, like I know it would be totally chill just to like pretty much like do that,
Mhm.
But with like another personality type, like oftentimes they're like, "What? Like that's a lot,"
Yeah. I have the same problem, but mostly with like questions about other people. But
like too probing, maybe.
Yeah. And like usually I like pull it off in a way that's not like so intrusive or
Yeah.
intrusive, but like when I was younger it was like people would be like taken aback and insulted. Very
I don't ask people probing questions because I don't want to make them super uncomfortable.
Well, I think we're
But-
talking about specifically someone that you're starting to be like real intimate with or something.
That's what I'm talking about too.
Oh, okay,
But what I will do is be like, okay, here's a list of all my flaws. Can you deal with this? Like,
That's probably a smart thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Has it worked out for
I
you as far as like mitigating? Like,
I mean,
problems?
I don't know. It was a shitty relationship, but
Probably
Yeah, well,
just
that's what it
like
all
a-
comes down to.
Yeah.
Your issues, and if your partner
Yeah.
can handle them
right.
and like can deal with it, or put up with your shit.
But at the same time, dumping all of your negatives on people like that can scare them away.
Well, of course.
Even though they probably
Yeah.
could deal with your flaws, like they'll be like, "Whoa, that's a lot of flaws."
Well, they're like, well,
Well, they're like, is this just the beginning? Like,
Yeah, right, exactly.
or
I'm
like,
oh, it's actually the end.
it's like this is all of it. I just,
Yeah.
they don't believe you though, right? Like,
Right.
or it might
That's
look
what
like
it
they like you don't want to work on yourself, so you're kind of just like, take me or leave me. Like
Yeah.
these are gonna always be my problems, kind of.
Yeah,
You have to deal with it.
And also sometimes I have a tendency, like when I finally make that connection, it's like I'm so eager because it's so rare that I feel like that it just becomes so. You start to think that they're going to reciprocate that feeling, and that they're going to be willing to like answer those probing questions and stuff because you would be willing, I guess.
Well, both of you being INTPs, do you guys think you guys have a lot of baggage or what? Spacey and Zach?
It's not that we have like so much baggage; it's just that it's not commonly brought out in the open and discussed. Personally, like I don't think it's much more than other people deal with. It's just that because it's so internalized, it's become like a bigger behemoth than it ought to be.
Yeah, we do get really mired in the things that are vaguely wrong with us, even if they're not that bad. So like, I guess like you're saying, they kind of like loom like monsters in our heads, and we're like,
They grow into something that's like, from our
Yeah,
perception, so much worse than
right.
anyone. Like whereas opposed to like if you would put it out there and then someone was able to tell you like, oh, okay, well, that's not really like a big deal, you know. But you never get that feedback because you don't feel comfortable revealing it in the first place, and it results in like kind of this like feedback loop of like stored up, pent up baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like, you know, the nature of our personality is like led us to have that much more conflict, you know, except maybe if you're like in a much more authoritarian environment, then I would say that INTPs are likely to have a lot more conflict, you know, growing up. You know, if you're like in a stricter school system or something. But other than that, like I don't think you're accumulating that much more actual physical events that have been like negative. It's just the way you deal with them.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that INTPs are easily traumatized?
Yeah, I guess so.
Emotionally, because we don't have good emotional, like, especially when we're young, right? We don't have like
Coping
way to deal
mechanisms?
with that. We haven't developed our feeling function really, you know.
I find it really interesting that like INTPs are ranked as like one of the types with the lowest amount of coping resources or whatever,
Yeah.
and then ENTPs are on the top of the list for have like amount of coping resources.
Well, it's because they're the
we
ones.
don't cope. We don't cope. We just do something else.
I mean, but that's even a good method. An INTP will literally just sit there with their problems and not even think to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like,
Yeah,
Jesus
I
Christ,
follow-
this is awful.
I follow
Oh my
into,
god.
lead the lie.
I fall
Right.
into like task paralysis, like depression sometimes, where like I'll be, you know, one of these things is really built up, and I'm like not communicating. I'm like kind of making myself into a bit of a shut-in, and it like creates a feedback loop, you know, and I kind of end up just like, you know, recalling from people, I guess. That happens like relatively like frequently, I would say, like throughout my life, you know.
Well, speaking about mother figures, being that you guys are all INTP, Spacey, Zach, and Nep, did you guys, when you grew up, were you guys close to your mothers or not? Or
I've never
you go
been
ahead.
close to my mother. She was always just, you know, she was so obsessed with like, I think she was in IS, FJ, and there was just no, there's no common ground, you know. So we just never, and it always just seemed like kind of a lot of the time she came off as like demanding and like for no apparent reason that I could discern. So it always seemed like unfair.
isn't
So
that a specific type for INTPs, like a romantic relationship partner?
I don't
I
know.
mean, my ex was an ISFJ, if that means anything.
Yeah.
Oh wait. She might be. No. I think she might. No, I don't know. My mom's weird. All I know is that like she had like a lot of high weird expectations for things, and she liked things to be done a certain way just because she knew, like that's the way you should do it.
That's
Well, that's
not
all
for any other
dude.
reason.
Come on.
I don't know.
That's being general.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
guess.
I
My
don't know.
sister-
Long story short, no, it wasn't close. Next person.
Well, my mom, I guess I was close to her when I was really little, and she was really. It was pretty good for a while. Her and my younger brother and I, and then when I was about 10, we ended up moving out of my stepdad's house, and then from that point on, I had a single mother, and she was either working or going to the gym, and when she was home, she was either trying to tell me what to do or bitching to me about what happened at work, or you know, all this shit that I didn't care about because I was an 11-year-old boy. You know, it ended up being a really, really tense relationship while I was in high school. Like, we butted heads all the time. She'd end up just fucking screaming at me. She wouldn't listen to anything I said.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, we're all right now, but when I was growing up, it really wasn't that good
It
overall.
was like for me, it was like neck and neck until I moved out of the house,
Yeah.
and even when I visit home still, like sometimes like if I'm not being conscious, like I'll just feel anger bubbling up with something that is like not even really, you know.
I basically avoided her as much as possible, and I never respected her. I never listened to her. If she tried to ground me, I'd just still do whatever I wanted until I got caught.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no sense of respect for her authority
Yeah.
because she never backed it up with anything that was
Right.
something I could
Exactly.
relate to. It was always just like, because I said so, kind of.
Yeah.
Because this is the way it has to be. You know, like, okay.
How about you, Neptune?
Oh, he's not here at the moment.
Yeah, he probably took off.
I mean, once I got like big enough, I almost resorted to like physically intimidating her to get her to screw off. Like, I never would have actually hit her or anything, but I was just like, you need to fucking stop before I flip out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
She just knew how to push my buttons, so what would happen is I would reach like an
Holy
irrational
shit,
state.
She can push my buttons.
I would reach like an irrational state in which, you know, it's that fear of the INTP where it's like, oh god, the emotional floodgates have been opened and there's no stopping this, and so the rational discourse is ended. And since you have no like experience of managing that, like they are then like, why are you acting so insane? You know, and it's like, you drove me to this, crazy person, like, you know, and you're just like fucking nuts.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause for me, like you get you know for me, and I've noticed like with other INTPs and from what they've had to say, like you get to a point where your fuse is very long in a lot of scenarios, but you get to a certain point where the floodgates are open. If you're not somebody that's very, like, you don't have a way of releasing much of your emotions through other outlets, like it's all going to come out in once, and it's going to be fucking brutal for the person that you unload on. Like more brutal than, like it ends the relationship, no matter who they are, like kind of brutal. Unless they're like a really, really close friend that you can like rebuild from and they understand. But it ends. Yeah.
I mean, nobody I'm friends with could ever piss me off that much.
Well, that's because you've learned not,
right.
you know who's gonna get you to that point by this stage of your life, right? Like you're like, okay.
No, I don't think I've ever been friends with anyone who made me that pissed. It's really just my mother and maybe my father who can piss me off that much.
I was talking to Magnus about this, and he's kind of similar.
Yeah.
No, even though you could say the thing that will ruin someone in an argument, like a personal argument, and even though you might be mad enough to want to say it, like you just know it will be like it'll just ruin them, so you can't do it. Like you just can't bring yourself to go that low.
If you're at the level where like, as I've gotten old, like when I was younger, it was like an unintelligible mess when it came out. But now that I'm older and I have like a much sharper like intellect and vocabulary and stuff like that, it does come out like, the words come out like daggers, and they do leave lasting marks. It's very like calculated, like, because you've analyzed this person and you understand.
You already had it in your head.
You know what their insecurities are and all of this kind of stuff. And then when you're at this point, like you don't have the restraint, like the typical empathetic connection that you have because it's being overridden by just like the pure amount of emotion. And so you unleash on that person knowing all this stuff about them and like exactly what the insecurities are and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Neptune, can you give us your assessment regarding your mother and between age 10 and 25 or whatever it was?
I am 23, but I don't know. It's kind of too complex to like break up. And I don't know. Like, how do you really like?
Well, it's just like what's it called? Spacey and Zach said. They said that they had a close from age 10 to whatever early 20s. They weren't necessarily so attached to their mother figures.
That actually relates. Yeah, when I was like she kind of realized that I was a little bit more sensitive than most people. I think when I was like probably like 4 to like maybe like 11, 10, 12, around that area, things got they changed a little bit, and I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but yeah, I relate to that.
Yeah, and this kind of ties in a little bit to the flat affect that a lot of INTPs typically have. I wouldn't say like typically, but like can have like pretty strongly, I guess. is it's a way of like overcompensating for that like emotional tidal wave that's like backed up, you know. So if you're in a state where you're like not doing as well as like expressing your emotions and stuff, like I think the affect of the INTP becomes flatter and flatter. I've like noticed that in myself.
I mean, I think like
Much more gregarious when I'm like emotionally a little bit more like open and, you know, not feeling vulnerable, I guess.
yeah, I kind of just like I was always a shy kid, but I just remember like I had no coping resources once again, and like I just got more introverted and more introverted and more introverted, and then I started wearing it on my face, kind of.
Yeah, the fact that I'm even talking about this stuff, you can already tell that my affect has become significantly flatter. Like that's why I started to mention it, because I was like, I just realized that I was doing that because we were talking about these issues. You know, I'm fine doing it, by the way. It's like not a big deal. It's just that like it just happens. It's like an automatic response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes like something will hit like that sensitive spot again, and I can feel like literally all of the life like leave me, and my face has no choice but to like droop. And,
Yeah.
like, really like flat.
Because you, especially in that moment, like you definitely don't want anyone to realize that it had that effect on you too. So you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, poker face.
It's like this weird like
You don't have any power over me. I'm not, you know, vulnerable.
like you're on the border of like dissociating and being two in your body.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but maybe you know what I mean.
Unless I'm like really fucking depressed or something, like I can kind of become gregarious at the flip of a switch if I want to. Like I can.
Well, I know it's an aspect of your personality. Like you said, you wanted to be like the Joker. It's something that you're more of like the entertainer variety of INTP. That like
I was like
all
the
of us have that
class clown.
aspect.
I was like the class
you seem to
clown
be much
in
more
the smart
comfortable in that
classes.
role.
And I don't know. I just like to like mess with people, be like, "Hey, how's it going? Fuck, blah 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 blah," and like say crazy shit to them and see how they respond. And
but when I'm feeling really like
categorize
positive
it,
about
but-
things and everything's going well, like I do that kind of thing as well. You know, where it's I'm very like, you know, teasing and like, you know, mixing that in with like deadpan jokes to like, and it kind of throws people for a loop, and it's like really entertaining because you're getting these like reactions out of them, but they're also laughing, and so it's like this mutually beneficial like arrangement, you know. Like I definitely get in that mode, you know, but it's not my. It's rarer than I think it is like for you, I guess.
How about you, Luna, being an INTP?
About being an INTP as far as being.
Oh no. Oh, just because we already gave you guys an assessment, I want to see what it's like with Luna being a female INTP. She had a similar or not with her mother growing up from age 10 to 25. But I don't know if she's on the mic or not.
She never talks on mic.
She talked on mic a few times, but not necessarily.
Oh man, I've never heard it. But yeah,
weren't you on the Tuition Exploration show with me, Ken? During Halloween?
In here. I'm sure maybe she was before, but I wasn't there for it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think she's only been on like once, and somebody had to link the raw footage for me to see it.
I need to get some water. I'll be right back.
Oh, it's like when Marjay actually flickered onto cam for like 3 seconds at one time.
She was so pretty. I thought she would look good.
Yeah, I was like, what the?
Totally hit that.
Yeah.
Like for some reason, I imagined like a really like frumpy and like average looking like kindergarten teacher
I know what you
or something
mean. Yeah,
with like,
I know exactly
like
what you
weird
mean.
sweaters, but she looks like kind of like feisty looking
Yeah.
in like a good way.
I like them feisty.
I think I forgot I could turn my mic on and talk. I don't think I've talked for like an hour and a half.
What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. It's INTP hour.
When you're talking
Yes,
to someone, like someone new, which function are you predominantly? Are you like all NE, or are you like, can they see the FI, or do you kind of turn on an FE switch?
I feel like I'm a lot of NE, but I don't know. I connect with people a lot, and I do a lot of like. I feel like I talk about my experiences a lot. Is that SI?
It depends, I guess, what kind of experiences and what the motivation is, maybe.
I think that's an INFP thing.
Like if you're trying to connect on an FI level, and you're like talking about experiences that mean something to you, then I would say that's FI. But I don't know, or that change the way you are or something.
Well, I think in INTPs and INFPs, SI can probably recall certain really influential experiences, sometimes at unwanted times. Like,
oh God, tell me about it.
You start dwelling on it. Like I think that's an SI thing.
There'll be this like relatively like benign interaction with somebody, and then it'll like trigger you so deeply because it has this like there's like this emotional memory that traces back like throughout your entire life that you associate with that particular mannerism or like thing that will like, at least for me, like these like really strong emotions will be brought forth by this like interaction that, you know, doesn't in the moment it has none of that feeling. It's like this emotional memory that gets resurfaced, and it's like you're reliving the original like feeling and like event, I guess. So it's really bad. Like if I get in a fight with somebody that I've known for a long time, and like that part's like engaged, it's like I'm fighting every battle we've ever had in that instant, because all that emotional stuff is all coming to a head, right? If it's something that like a recurring problem you've had with somebody, like it can make it especially bad when it finally comes to like a conflict point.
Well, I think like a good example of it is like, for instance, if I think about my trip long enough, like an acid trip or something, I can recall exactly how it felt. Like I can summon that feeling again.
Yeah, there's a long time after I did psilocybin where I could basically like rekindle the kind of like afterglow glow feeling for like the 6 hours like after the main effects wear off. Like I could resummon that for like several years afterwards just by like you're saying in that kind of way. Yeah.
Ooh, that's one of my favorite things is to like cook and then or to go out to eat and then like to like taste something and like a complex meal and to like discern each of the flavors that I'm tasting and each of the textures that I'm tasting, and then like talk about it, and then to go back and then go home and then like think about it for the rest of the week and like remember it on my tongue and like remember having eaten it and imagine having like cooked it and then like imagine how it could have been better. But then my brother really likes to cook. He's an ENTP, but I don't know. He got really into it. He got this big book, like a textbook on cooking. It was all about the science of cooking, written by a guy who dropped out of MIT. And it was literally like as big as like a college chemistry textbook. And he read the whole thing back. And he got really amazing at cooking. Like he could be like a sous chef at a 4-star restaurant, and or an apprentice or something. And he would make these grand meals and set them in front of us, and then I would taste them, and I would be like, "Oh, you use this, and this. It tastes great, but I would have liked it with a little more salt or a little more this," because like it was so fun to think about that. And he would hate me for doing that.
Wow,
I love food.
Because he just wanted me to love it.
Interesting. Yeah,
And
that's way too much like for me, like I wouldn't do something like that with like all that specific detail and stuff.
No, I wouldn't either. I'd just be like, this is fucking delicious, man.
Yeah, exactly. uh,
Except
But-
my mouth would be full, so you know you wouldn't
When it-
actually hear what I was saying.
yeah, when it comes to like an entire state of mind, that's the thing that I can recall. It's like an entire state of mind, not like that's associated with like an emotional feeling or something like that. So like with the psilocybin, like afterglow kind of feeling that I couldn't like just make myself trip. Obviously, that'd be crazy. But like that kind of like serenity kind of feeling, like the sense of like calmness and like contentment. Like I could like resummon that state of mind in its entirety, but not like a specific memory associated with like a single taste or smell or something.
Maybe
like
that's why, I don't know, like, I guess if like an INTP were to reach in Nirvana or something, they'd probably be the most likely to be able to recall and maintain that state for longer than most people.
Right. I'm actually curious, like other INTPs that are here, do you have lucid dreams at all?
No,
On a regular
I don't
basis?
really. I don't seem to dream at all. At least I don't remember my dreams. So
Yeah, I seem to have. It goes like certain periods. Like I have a bunch of them, and other times like I don't have any. But it's always been something that like definitely has been a part of my life. But I don't know. I'm just
In
curious.
a positive or negative way, or did it turn into
Generally positive. When I was younger, I would have them. I did, and I would be like kind of, disturbed
Yeah.
sometimes. Like because you didn't
yeah, I had
realize you
more
were in
when I was
control.
younger.
I guess.
So,
I don't
Did
know.
any of you guys have sexual dreams or not? Like that's only happened like once or twice.
One time I had a lucid sexual dream, and that was nice, but it's not something, not on a regular basis.
I
Yeah,
don't
well,
remember if I did or not.
I usually never dream, but due to the fact that I just stay up until I'm like super dead tired and my eyes are like
That's what I
red,
do too.
I'm about
Yeah,
to
see,
blow
when
up,
I'm doing
and
that,
I
like
just
I don't.
crash.
Yeah.
So
I've got a regular sleep schedule.
Also- Also, smoking pot before bed also seems to make you dream less, and I do that a lot, or at least I did.
Yeah.
Dude, dreaming's also like a cool meal for me, like a really cool meal. Like I like remembering it and putting myself back in like
Yeah. Do you lucid dream?
Oh, do I?
I don't lucid dream, but I almost like know that I'm dreaming. It's almost like a photo.
So it's like in between state. You're like dreaming, but you don't really have like, you don't feel like you have a lot of agency over it, but you like know
Yeah.
that you're in a dream.
Why
Okay.
waste your life by just dreaming and sleeping in general? Why waste your life?
Because being unconscious is great.
It's so fun.
I love it. It's like one of my favorite. I have this reoccurring dream where I can like, it's almost like I'm a moon bouncer. I can like gazelle over things, like float, bounce kind of thing.
Interesting.
Like
Wow.
like, it's
I've never.
fun
Yeah, I
and
can't control stuff like that.
floating, and like I can control that, but I can't control the dream. And it's like one of my favorite things to do.
Wow.
Why not?
I had some weird, like really next level stuff happen, like with me. So basically, like when I started to realize that I had agency in my like lucid dreams, like I did things like I would like find an NPC in my dream, like I say the NPC, like another, like a character that's like a human, right? And I would like actually like I would like outstretch my hand and like focus on my like intensity on them and just be like, what are you, like with the most intensity, and like weird shit would happen, like their faces would like fuse into many different faces and then like explode into like a million people and shit like that. And I was like, it made me like really reconsider like the nature of like people and stuff. Like I like my lucid dreams are always like really intense when I take agency. Like it's not like I can't like, it's that kind of stuff happens, right? But not stuff like, oh, I can make the world change, or I can make myself float, or like I can't like do that kind of stuff very easily.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like during when I used to play video games, when I'd go to sleep, sometimes I'd play the video game in my head. Then when I'd wake up, I'd beat the game or whatever.
Yeah,
But
that
I still
happens to
automatically
me
do that.
sometimes. Yeah.
But that was like a long time ago when I used to like do gaming heavily, or more
Either
than 4
way.
or 5 hours a day.
I remember like being playing a lot of World of Warcraft when I just started playing that, and I saw like in my dreams I started seeing like stars, like stars floating up from bodies laying around me in my dreams. I'm like, oh, loot.
That's awesome.
I play social relationships in my dreams all the time. Like I play them out, and then I'll wake up
Do you
and
win
I'll
or
have
lose
to,
a lot?
Huh?
That was a joke. Do you win or lose in social relationships? Like,
in my dreams, I lose more often. And then I wake up and it's like the same stuff. It's almost like my reality comes into my dreams. And it's like my brain's like practicing. It's like I'm in the Matrix, like leveling up so that I'm smart enough in real life to get it right.
My brain does that after stuff has happened.
Yeah.
So it'll do it like retroactively. Like there'll be some problem that happened in a social interaction, and then it'll like get sorted out in my dream, and then I'll feel good about myself.
See, I have the opposite thing where like I have some negative interaction with somebody, and I'll dream about it later, and then like they'll be like I'll have like another fight with them that's like way worse, way worse, and I'll wake up. And I'll wake up and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that person, fucking hell. And then like I'll see them the next day and I'm just like, I can't help but be like, what the fuck? You know, you bitch. Like, like I can't.
Do you wonder if like the dream happened because they had negative feelings towards you?
I mean, sometimes I wouldn't put it, it's not something I would outright dismiss, but it's not something I would have like evidence for. So it'd be interesting. But in the sense that like, in the sense that you can sense their animosity, and then perhaps your subconscious like constructs this reality.
Right.
Might also be true, right? Because you pick up on a lot of stuff that you might not necessarily like keep in the front of your mind. You know.
For a while, I had these weird dreams where I would like one where I would like vomited in front of a friend, and then like another one where I just was like defecating in front of a friend, and then like. Another one where I was like, yeah, like similar ones like that. It was just really strange.
I just don't remember the dreams that I do have, but all I know about them is that they're usually very like surreal and kind of like really based on real things that kind of happen, like real places, real people. And then there'll be some kind of surreal aspect to them, and then they'll be just super abstract. And it'll be really hard to tell what's going on or derive any meaning from it. But then sometimes I'll wake up and be like, shit, I wish that hadn't ended. I don't know.
Yeah, it was strange. Like once I started studying like a little bit of like Hermeticism and like reading a little bit more about that, becoming a little bit more literate about it, I started having dreams that were like really rich in symbology and stuff. And like that was like, I don't know. It's complicated now for me.
How many tablets do you take before you went to bed?
None. It's just the state of things.
You know, like I know from a fact, like if I take shrooms or LSD and I look in any surface at all, any blank surface, I can see like runes and stuff. It's fucking creepy.
Yeah, actually, you know, if I'm being 100% honest, like the first time I did shrooms, like my reaction, like as it was coming on and stuff, like wasn't like a lot of other people's, like what's this in foreign environment? It was kind of like, oh, I know this place, like this is where I was when I was a kid. Like it felt like home, honestly. And like that kind of stuff where you like look into the snow or like you look into like a popcorn ceiling or whatever, like if you're just like a little bit sleep deprived and stuff, like that kind of happens to me anyway, a little bit, where you start to like see those projections of like, you know, objects that exist in your mind and symbols and stuff that your brain, like a Rorschach block, but it's like happening in real time and reforming itself.
Happens to me. It looks like blood is like, or like blood like kind of traveling through veins on the ceiling, kind of.
Yeah, like or
like similar to a trip, an acid trip.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
But it has to be like this semi-random pattern, so your brain is like, because your brain's trying to sort out order from the disorder.
It's like an Aztec symbols.
Yeah.
And, if you look at the Aztec symbols, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, but in order for me to like be in that state of mind, right? So this is what occultists would consider a mystical state of mind, right? Because we're all using secular language here because none of us are like fucking occultists, right? Maybe,
Well,
but we only understand like secular language like together, right? Like that's the common language, right? I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Went too deep.
That's what
I
she said.
just consider SI to be like this reminds me of that function, and it doesn't necessarily have to tie